Crypto Trader is proudly brought to you by Element, a full-service investment bank for the digital token capital markets.
This week's Crypto Trader comes to you from the CNBC studios here in San Francisco. I'm Crypto Man Ran, and tonight we're going to be looking at the stories making crypto news headlines, as well as speaking to some of the biggest names at the pinnacle event in the San Francisco Blockchain Week. And as all the good news filters into the market, we're going to be asking why none of this is managing to move the market. Then we're going to be changing the narrative and asking whether investors expect the next bull run to be triggered by real-world adoption and not just speculation. Tonight and every other night, we're all in on crypto, so stay tuned or hit the subscribe button. Last week was in fact dubbed one of the biggest weeks in Bitcoin's history, with a flood of good news entering the market. We got news that Gemini managed to secure insurance on their custody solution. We got news that the SEC once again asked for comments around the proposed rule changes that would bring about a Bitcoin ETF. We had a Ameritrade saying that they're going all in on crypto. And of course, news that the Yale Endowment is making their first investment into crypto. I went to Epicenter, the biggest event in the San Francisco Blockchain Week, to find out why. Ran, it's a big week here this week. What can we expect?
Thank you for coming, Ran. I really appreciate your time. So this week is really all about education. It's about getting people excited about this technology and really forget about the prices. People need to be educated. Mass adoption is going to happen only when people feel comfortable with this technology. They know how to hold their keys, they know how to develop on it, and this is what we hear.
Why don't you take me for a walk around?
Let's go.
Let's go.
So as you can see, this is the pinnacle event of San Francisco Blockchain Week. Let me show you upstairs. So upstairs, you'll see the main stage and the exhibition. So we have Shift, we have Icon, we have PwC and Uphold Alliance.
People are excited about the change of narrative.
I think people realize that this conference is different. I think they realize that this is a place that they can come and learn. You can see here in front of us, that's the wall. That's the wall of terminology. You know, this is all the terms, the basic stuff everybody needs to know if they want to get into crypto.
I wonder how many of our viewers know all these terms. EVM, Ethereal Virtual Machine,
Genesis Block.
Fork, Genesis Block.
There's more here. This is what we've been teaching in, Blockchain 101.
What happens at the Blockchain Academy?
So the Blockchain Academy is where all the developers get together. There's about 400 developers sitting all day coding. You have Arrington, Cosmos, Lightning, you have Icon, all of these new protocols that exist outside of Ethereum. It's not even a hackathon, it's purely education and workshops.
So what are we seeing here?
So here you see Cosmos and Thunder workshops.
If you have a look over there, you can see that there's a moderator and he's actually teaching developers in front of everyone what's going on with the code. With me in the studio, I've got Shin Haley, partner at GBIC Capital. Shin, there really is a new narrative out there. It's no longer about speculation.
Yeah, I think a lot of investors, projects, and media are now talking about the mass adoption of the blockchain technology. In 2017, we invested a lot in layer 1 protocol, and at that time, people were talking like why we are trying to build the roof before we building the foundation. But now people talk about how we can really make the blockchain widely used and massively adopted.
In this new narrative, what are the barriers to mass adoption?
Right. So, I mean, we still need to improve a lot of technological breakthrough, right? Like we talk about scalability and privacy and etc. But right now, I think people are trying to focus more on how we can really make the blockchain widely used and massively adopted.
So in the old days, or last year, we used to speak about investor on-ramps and off-ramps. We speak about the ETF. But the narrative has changed now, and we're talking about people actually using the technology. And for that narrative, what are the big barriers? What is standing between us and 250 million people actually using the blockchain?
Yeah, I think like the best scenario case when the blockchain is really mass adopted is when users do the same thing as they do right now, but they really don't know it's actually built on the blockchain. So to do that, we need a lot of things. Number one, the regulation, clear regulation. Number 2, some technical breakthrough from our layer 1 protocol, such as scalability and privacy, etc. And we need more dApps to build on top of those layer 1 protocol.
With Bitcoin displaying more and more stable coin-like qualities every day, the Tether FUD once again reared its ugly head last week, with renewed rumors that the currency's bank accounts were not auditable and not representative of the number of Tether in circulation. TrueUSD, a fiat-backed stablecoin, now has over $100 million in circulation, while DAI, the MakerDAO stablecoin, has just under $60 million. With me in the studio, I've got Danny Ahn, founder of TrueUSD. Danny, this whole FUD around Tether and the $3 billion in circulation, how much truth is there into this?
You know, it's difficult to tell because there's a lot of news that's coming out about it, but that's informed by some information by the banks or the actual, let's say, regulators if they issue a subpoena. So it's something where there's been a lot of suspicion about, but there's never been any concrete real evidence for.
Now, you guys run a similar coin. It's a fiat-backed USD coin. How does it work?
Yeah, so we were the second to market after Tether. And so we saw them and saw that transparency, regulatory compliance was kind of the #1 thing to follow. And so what it does is you have a bank account, that's an escrow account, you put $100 in it, and then you mint $100 of TrueUSD, and the matching escrow account should always match the circulating TrueUSD.
Well, that's the problem, that no one knows what Tether's, US dollar Tether's bank accounts look like.
Right.
How do you guys solve the problem? Is there full transparency behind the bank account on TrueUSD?
Yeah, so we work with a company called Cohen & Company, which is a public accounting firm, and they do attestations, which means they look regularly at the bank account and then verify that there is a matching amount of circulating TrueUSD in the bank account.
Now, the big question on all the viewers' minds must be, what if someone wants to get the money out of the account? What mechanisms are there in place to make sure that one of your employees doesn't take out all the money out of the bank?
Oh, so the big difference between us and a lot of the fiat-backed stablecoins is that we work with independent fiduciaries and banks. And so they open up the escrow account. We have no access to it. And the only way that we have access to it is if someone sends, let's say, 100 TrueUSD to us, we burn the tokens after they've gone through identity verification through KYC AML. And then we notify the fiduciary to wire $100 over to the actual customer.
So in your case, you can actually redeem TrueUSD for real dollars?
Yes.
Because in Tether, in the fine print, it says that you actually can't. Am I right?
Yeah, I've seen that in the terms and conditions before. And we believe that stability is led by redeemability. And so every time you are sure that you can take $100 of TrueUSD, convert it into $100 of US dollars, then it's going to maintain its peg.
So there has been a lot of FUD about US dollar Tether, but there are other options out there. If you want to get more information, you can go to trueusd.com. With all the big funds in attendance at Epicenter this week, I also managed to catch up with Kevin Ting, founder of DHVC, one of the biggest funds in the world in crypto today. Kevin, it's a great pleasure having you on Crypto Trader. We've been trying to get you on here for a while. For some of our viewers who don't know what DHVC is, give us some background as to who is DHVC.
So DHVC is a venture capital firm. We started in 2013 and now manage close to $700 million US dollar under management. We have office in both Palo Alto, Silicon Valley, Beijing, and Shanghai.
So blockchain is really taking up most of your time now. I mean, you're mainly focused on blockchain.
Yeah, I'm very excited about blockchain, and I spend a lot of proactive time thinking about blockchain and the future of decentralized internet.
So let's talk about where we are in the blockchain market. We saw massive speculation in 2017 and right now into 2018. And then we saw this bull market, and the market has literally stopped moving. We've been at a Bitcoin price of 6.5 and 6.6 for a while. What is the next catalyst for a market rally?
Yeah, so I think a lot of the excitement around smart contract platform over the last 2 years is a lot about the utility tokens and the potential that these applications will become decentralized. Over time, I think in order for blockchain to get to the next level, we really need mass adoption and real application. So particularly, I'm interested in crypto native application, meaning that some applications that are not possible previously in the old internet world, but are now possible because of smart contract platforms.
So what is the barrier to this mass adoption? Why haven't we had mass adoption up until now?
So we actually have a lot of theses around this. One is that we are interested in data marketplace, meaning actually Google indexes and enables search on top of the world's public data, but now we can see that the world's private data can potentially be searched and categorized and turned into a marketplace. For example, in finance, we can have a credit scoring based on users' private personal data. It could come from decentralized or centralized sources where data contributors contribute their data and get rewarded, and the data privacy can be respected. But through this blockchain-driven smart contract platform, a decentralized credit score can be enabled.
So that is one of the applications. Let's talk about stuff that you guys are investing in now, and specifically in the bear market. Are you still investing in this bear market?
Yeah, so actually earlier this year, we invested in an amazing company called Ontology. It's started by OnChain. It's based out of Shanghai. It's a next generation layer 1 protocol, but also a chain network. We also helped Ontology implement a lot of dApps or vertical chains in its ecosystem. So the reason why I'm very bullish on it is that it's really focused on solving real complex problem in the real world. So it's a lot about aggregating different data sources to solve real complex problems in scalability, in privacy, in various industries like IoT, healthcare, and finance.
What else are you guys investing in?
We also participated in the Telegram round. We thought that Telegram is a great example where mass user adoption of tokens can happen in the messaging world, but also dApps. It could be a dApp store, it could be a wallet, there could be exchange on top of it. We also invested in some reverse ICOs. So one company that we're excited about is called Contentos, Content OS, which is basically working with some leading social apps, entertainment apps that have tens of millions of users.
Kevin, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on Crypto Trader. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much, Ran.
That's Kevin Ding, and he's the founder of DHVC. We're going to go back to the studio for more coverage. I also caught up with some of the biggest names in blockchain at the San Francisco Blockchain Week. Brian Kelly, a familiar face not only on my show, but also on the network. Welcome back to Crypto Trader.
Great to be back, Ran.
Brian, here we are at San Francisco Blockchain Week, and this is the pinnacle event.
It is.
And the narrative seems to be changing. What are you picking up?
Well, what's interesting is we're definitely at a point where execution matters, right? We've talked about speculation out there. Oh, this is going to be the next best thing. Now execution matters. So in terms of the development, that's what everybody's looking for here. Where are you? When are you going to release this? When are you going to release a real product? In terms of the investment, I've actually noticed a bit of a change. People are thinking, and people have said, you know what? The bear market might be over here. We might be closer to the end than we are at the beginning.
So you believe that we near the bottom of the bear market?
I think so. I think so. You know, if you look at the way the market's trading today, we're not seeing that relentless selling that we've seen all year. To me, that's the sellers are done. The sellers are exhausted.
A lot of people said we haven't had capitulation yet. So they talk about
perhaps, yeah. I mean, just because we haven't seen some high-profile blow-up or some drop down to 4,000 doesn't mean that you can't have a capitulation that's a grinding bottom, right?
Okay, now help me out here.
Yeah.
You've got all these bridges being built. You've got custodian solutions being built. You've got institutional bridges being built. Why is the market not responding to all of this?
Because there's no buyers yet, right? So what we need is the fresh capital. The sellers are done. As far as I can tell, it appears the sellers have been done. The fresh capital needs to come in, and that's going to be the institutions. Yale Endowment coming in, very big for the space, but it takes a while for people to write that check. So that's what we need.
How big is the news of the Yale Endowment? How big was that news?
I think it's very big. I think it's huge, and the reason why David Swensen, one of the best investors in the world, thought leader in the endowment space, if you're at another endowment that's not invested in crypto, you just got put on notice. You better be looking at it, or you better have a reason why you're not in it. One of those two things, but everybody's got to be involved now.
And what is it going to take to bring the buyers in? I mean, last year, if you remember this time, we were at about $4,000 or $5,000, and nothing happened until November the 11th, or there or thereabouts.
Right, yep.
Do you think that there's a little volcano brewing where there's like this?
Yes. So we don't have the liquidity, we don't have the sellers anymore. We just need those buyers to come in. What's going to cause that? It's going to be FOMO. That's how this market works. So what's going to cause that FOMO? We have a couple catalysts coming up. We have the NYSE-backed exchange, maybe in November, might be a little bit later than that. That could be a catalyst. We have the ETF decision. That's probably going to be a 2019 thing, but that could certainly be a catalyst. And now that we're starting to see some of the Asian exchanges come on back line, Korea, those could be catalysts. So there's multiple events coming up over the next couple months that could spark it like that.
So do you think we'll get another strong bull run before the end of December?
Before the end of the summer, you know what, I'll go out on a limb and I say I think we're higher in December than we are here today. We're higher than where are we, 6,600? I think we're higher in December than that.
So is the next bull run going to be driven by adoption?
Yes, without a doubt. It'll be driven by adoption and institutional investment. And I'll tell you this, when we do get this next bull run, it's going to be nothing like we've seen before.
You think it's going to be much bigger?
Much bigger.
Another highlight of the event was when two ex-Coinbase employees got up on stage for a fireside chat. I caught up with both Charlie Lee and Nick Termina after their chat. Charlie, it's always good to have you back on Crypto Trader, and today we're really going to change the narrative. I want to talk to you about mass adoption and the barriers to mass adoption. Are more people using crypto, and what are the barriers? Why are we not getting this mass adoption? The technology is 10 years old already this year. What are the barriers?
The barriers is scaling, right? We want Bitcoin and Litecoin to be able to scale to the world, right? And to do that, we need something like Lightning Network where we can actually scale without sacrificing decentralization. And that's being built out right now. So I think we're going to see a lot more adoption, real world adoption in the coming year. We need to be able to spend cryptocurrency as easy as we spend credit card fiat today.
So I want to shift the discussion, and I know you're very active in Asia. And Asia has been spoken about as a mass adoption ground for crypto. Many of our studio guests and contributors have all said that the revolution is actually happening in Asia and not really happening here in the United States. Do you think that Asia will lead the adoption of blockchain?
I think Asia is more about investing and speculation. So maybe it may push the boundary in terms of like ICOs, regulating ICOs and things like that. But in terms of like real world usage of cryptocurrency, I don't think Asia will push that. I think the US and other countries will be more kind of pushing more towards real world adoption.
Nick, you mentioned you just came back from Asia and it was your first visit to South Korea. What about actual adoption of the technology? So let's put aside the speculation of it. Do you think that Korea or Asia is going to lead the adoption of the technology?
It's a tough question. I think clearly from a consumer perspective, it's driving crypto right now. I think what I see there from a entrepreneurial developer perspective, it's not there yet. I think there's kind of seeds of it starting, but from my perspective and what I see with my fund is still mostly kind of US-based projects that I find kind of most interesting, and that from my perspective will kind of lead us to kind of the next wave of real adoption.
But what about real use case of blockchain technology? What's standing in the way of us and adoption of that?
I see investing and speculating as adoption, right? And I think it's possible that crypto gets from 200 billion or so in total market value to several trillion on just that. From my perspective, I see just what I'm seeing kind of globally in terms of viewing this new investable asset class. I think that's possible. At the same time, I think what I'm seeing in terms of real adoption is kind of mostly infrastructure and middleware kind of being built to fuel real applications, and that's things like scalability solutions and stable coins and decentralized exchange.
Last week, Michael Arrington also tweeted that his fund would stop investing in US-based projects. This because the legal costs and process were becoming expensive and inconvenient. At the same time, Seoul Mayor Park Woon-soon revealed a $108 million plan to build a blockchain smart city. This really highlights the difference in approach between the two countries. I spoke to Michael Arrington to find out more about his tweet. You tweeted a few days ago about another subpoena that was given to you guys about investing in a US company.
I have no memory of that, yeah. My lawyer doesn't like it when I talk about that stuff, but sometimes I feel like I just want the community to know at least what I know about some of this stuff, because most funds won't talk about the fact that they're receiving these subpoenas from the SEC, and now we've received 2. Although both of them are for investments from last year when I was individually investing. But I know these funds are getting them because we're getting them, and I think that the community would be better off if we all talked about it. So
now, what are they asking you? Are they asking you about your investments in US-based companies?
In both cases, they were, one was a US company, one was a Canadian company, but in both cases, they were companies that raised from US investors, and they both had done public offerings. Remember last year with the public offering stuff. It's not clear to me that the U.S. companies that haven't done public offerings are getting these kinds of letters yet, but I don't want to take the risk. So what I've said is we're just not going to invest in U.S. companies anymore at all.
That's a big statement.
Not really. You know this. The best U.S. companies are already reincorporating in other jurisdictions, or the entrepreneurs are going to Singapore instead of California. I don't know of any awesome deals that we would otherwise invest in. The best deals, they're not even here anymore.
So does this mean that if the SEC doesn't act soon, that there could be real long-term implications for the USA?
I think it's too late. I think there are long-term implications. So, what I was saying is the SEC, I don't know what the SEC thinks, but through people who know the SEC, they seem to think they have all the time in the world because the US is such a big market that eventually all these companies have to come to the US and get US investors. I'm not sure that's the case anymore because the US isn't half the world's economy like it used to be, where you really couldn't be a successful worldwide company without a US presence, and now you absolutely can be. And so I'm not sure these companies will ever come to the US market, and I think we're losing momentum, if it's not lost already, in the next generation of tech that matters. And I think, what if the SEC had done this in the 90s with the internet? We wouldn't have Amazon, we wouldn't have Google, we wouldn't have Facebook or Twitter, we'd have none of it today. These companies would be based all around the world instead. So that's bad for the US.
And if you look at companies or countries like Malta, Gibraltar, Liechtenstein, even Singapore, which are much smaller than the US, they seem to be attracting a lot of talent and a big, large tax-paying bunch of companies which are now migrating to them.
Yeah, well, I think what companies are looking for isn't necessarily a big market because they can address markets around the world. It's regulatory certainty, right? It isn't even necessarily ease of regulation. It's just actually knowing what the actual rules are so they can play by them. Now people are throwing darts in the dark and hoping they hit the dartboard, and they don't know. And the SEC gets to decide with hindsight what's good and bad behavior. I just think people are begging in the US for the SEC to provide some guidance here.
And here's a different angle. Our correspondent Adrian Bashuk went to speak to changemakers at the Blockchain for Social Impact Summit.
So Ron, you know that we've been looking for blockchain use cases around the world. We've reported on projects in Jordan helping Syrian refugees, in Myanmar helping farmers. And now we're in San Francisco looking at social impact, the projects and the people here out of San Francisco that are trying to change the world with blockchain. So where are we? What's going on?
What this is a collection of some of the top social impact focused blockchain companies here in San Francisco. The Blockchain for Good team is here. Chelsea and her team have been paramount for a lot of the events in the city.
I would say that people here today care about humanity and the planet as a vector for using blockchain.
Can it really?
Can it really? I mean, currently it's not, is the truth, right? But yeah, I believe that it's possible to distribute value and ownership and rethink just about everything if we have a mechanism by which to do so.
The team from Mom Life is over there. These guys have a social network for mothers to support other mothers. It's all on the blockchain and it rewards them for producing content.
Blockchain is going to open up a lot of different opportunities for people who wouldn't have access to capital or marketplaces.
Susan over here is from, she actually works very closely with the UN.
I was one of 9 people that helped launch an NGO called Blockchain for Impact in partnership with the United Nations General Assembly. I'm building the actual model and designing the tech stack for what's called the Global Bank of Small States.
We see a lot of this kind of wishful thinking in the market of implementing blockchain for good. Is it happening?
So for We Trust, we're talking about cash transfer programming, how we can better disperse aid when we see natural crises or even geopolitical crises. For Democracy Earth, we're talking about how we can fairly and verifiably vote. Many other use cases that Consensus would be working on are with Hala Systems in terms of journaling war crime evidence or just helping with basic functions like remittances.
So critical research in fields like healthcare, let's say curing cancer is the example I gave, is being pushed out because people don't have access to the resources we need. Well, we're actually swimming in a sea of compute.
So here I see a lot of people who are seeing this as an opportunity for new growth in social impact. So whether that's in the supply chain and around food,
whether that's the fashion industry and like authenticity, and whether that's in refugee camps. Like, yeah, we're definitely working on it.
So it's happening.
Everywhere. Yeah, it's happening.
When do you see some of these causes coming to fruition to really help people en masse?
Yeah, for sure. So over the last year, we've seen a lot of infrastructure projects coming out. A lot of people said that like early 2019, we'll start to see some of the like crypto impact projects.
Using blockchain for good, is that around the corner or is it still a long way off?
Well, if not now, then when?
There's so much going on this week. I think a lot of it's on the finance side, the investment side, and frankly, this is a little bit different. I think what this brings to the table is people having real conversations about how you can help actual people.
So that is the Blockchain for Social Impact Summit. As you know, so many critics of crypto say that this is a purely speculative asset, but those are people trying to change the world for good using blockchain.
So, with the market stable, the mood in San Francisco is positive. People are building and the narrative is changing from speculation to mass adoption. Will a black swan event move the market up or down before the end of the year? That's the question we'll be asking next week. Until then, I'll be on Twitter at CryptoManRun, and you should trade well, my friends.
Crypto Trader is proudly brought to you by Element, a full-service investment bank for the digital token capital markets.